With the recent passing of Jane Goodall, the world lost not just a scientist, but the most influential advocate for our closest living relatives. Her life was entwined with theirs, the chimpanzees. In this video, I want to do something a little different. We'll look at chimpanzees, their biology, ecology, and conservation. But I also want to experience it through the lens of Jane Goodall's work and why she remains central to our current understanding of them. What does it mean to be human? If chimpanzees make tools, share culture, and show compassion, yet also wage war. To understand their world is to reflect on our own, and to ask, just how different are we from the rest of the animal kingdom? If you'd like to learn more, check out the document in the description with research papers and image credits. Before we answer any of these questions, we need to understand where chimpanzees fit into the tree of life. The words ape and great ape are often used interchangeably, and many people aren't sure how they differ from monkeys. All are primates, but the terms do have precise meanings. Ape refers to members of the superfamily Hominoidea. Within this group are just two families, the gibbons or lesser apes in Hylobatidae, and the great apes in Hominidae. There are many differences between apes and monkeys, but the easy one to notice is the tail. Monkeys have one, but apes do not. Monkey, by the way, is a problematic term from an evolutionary perspective, but since this video isn't about monkeys, we can set that aside for now. Within the great apes, we begin with the orangutans, 3 species in the genus Pongo. Found only on Sumatra and Borneo, they are the most arboreal of the great apes, and their shaggy orange coats make them unmistakable. Next are the gorillas, 2 species in tropical and equatorial Africa. They are the largest of the great apes. In fact, the largest living primates, and though they may look intimidating, they are largely herbivorous. Then, of course, there is us, Homo sapiens. And finally, our closest relatives, the genus Pan. Here we find 2 species, the chimpanzee and the bonobo. I did consider covering both today, but their behaviour and social lives are so different that bonobos could easily be their own video. So let me know if you want to see that in the future. Genetic studies show that humans diverged from chimps and bonobos around 7 or 8 million years ago, a blink in evolutionary time. This closeness can be found on a genetic level. Humans and chimpanzees share about 98.8% of their DNA, a similarity that may seem astounding, but reflects the true relationship between us and them. Chimpanzees, Pan troglodytes, live across equatorial Africa, from Guinea in the west to Uganda in the east. Their habitats range from dense forests to open woodland and savanna. Among the great apes, they are perhaps the most familiar to us, yet also among the most complex. Today, 4 recognized subspecies of chimpanzee are spread across equatorial Africa, the western, Nigeria-Cameroon, central and eastern chimpanzees. A 5th one has been proposed, but this has not yet been widely accepted. They differ subtly in appearance, range, and even behavior. Some primatologists argue these forms may one day be recognized as distinct species in their own right, reflecting the diversity within the chimpanzee lineage. Humans have been aware of chimpanzees, or at least creatures resembling them, for millennia, though early accounts were often clouded by myth. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder, in his Naturalis Historia, described troglodytes in the African interior, cave-dwelling, hair-covered beings who ate raw meat and moved in ways that were strikingly unlike humans. Whether he was describing chimpanzees, gorillas, or simply passing along travelers' tales, these reports blurred the line between observation and imagination. Through the Middle Ages and into the early modern period, Europeans continued to hear stories of wild men in Africa. Yet it would take centuries before chimpanzees were studied systematically and recognized as the complex, intelligent animals we know today. It wasn't until 1960 that a young Jane Goodall arrived at Gombe Stream in Tanzania, poised to change everything we thought we knew about our closest living relatives. At the time, the study of chimpanzees was a very different field than it is today. Most knowledge came from zoos or short expeditions. Chimpanzees were observed, measured, and recorded, but not understood as individuals. The prevailing scientific norm was detachment. No names, no emotions, no personal connection. To many, empathy was considered unscientific. and emotions would cloud judgment and observations. Goodall broke that rule. She named her chimpanzees David Greybeard, Flo, Fifi, and many others, giving each a distinct identity. At the time, this was controversial. Critics worried that naming them would lead to anthropomorphism, that she might project human traits onto her subjects and compromise her science. Yet, this choice was transformative. By recognizing chimpanzees as individuals with personalities, she opened the door to understanding the richness of their social lives. She achieved this understanding through patient, immersive observation. Day after day, Goodall sat quietly in the forest, sometimes for hours on end, letting the chimpanzees go about their lives without interference. She learned to move slowly to avoid startling them, and to observe subtle gestures, the flick of a finger, a glance, a vocalization, that revealed relationships, emotions, and intentions. By patiently watching them in their natural habitat, she was able to record behaviors that no brief expedition or zoo had ever revealed. Then came the discoveries. The most famous was tool use. David Greybeard stripped leaves from a twig to fish termites from a mound, the first recorded evidence that a non-human animal used tools in the wild. This simple act forced scientists to rethink what it meant to be human. Lois Leakey, her mentor, famously remarked, "Now we must redefine tool, redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as humans." Today, we know a wide range of animals use tools. Apes, birds, and even octopuses. But in 1960, this simple act upended the idea that tool use was uniquely human. But Goodall's observations went far beyond tools. She documented hunting strategies in which chimpanzees worked together to capture monkeys. She watched mothers comforting infants, siblings adopting orphans, and communities reconciling after conflicts. She also observed the darker sides of chimp life, dominant struggles, brutal aggression, and what later became known as the Gombe-Chimpanzee War. In the 1970s, a once unified community fractured into rival groups, and over 4 years engaged in coordinated raids, ambushes, and killings. This was the first time scientists had seen sustained, organized violence among non-human primates. A discovery that shook long-standing assumptions about the uniqueness of human warfare and underscored the deep complexities of chimpanzee societies. Her work unsettled many. It challenged long-held assumptions about human exceptionalism and called into question the very methods of scientific study. Goodall's approach, blending empathy with meticulous observation, proved revolutionary. By treating chimpanzees as individuals, she revealed the full richness of their behavior: intelligent, emotional, social, and, at times, violent. Goodall's work at Gombe didn't just transform our view of chimpanzees, it reshaped primatology itself. Her patient, long-term immersive approach became a new model for studying great apes. Dian Fossey applied similar methods to gorillas in Rwanda, revealing their gentle, family-centered lives. Birute Galdikas did the same thing with orangutans in Borneo, documenting their intelligence and unique semi-solitary culture. Together, these studies replaced caricatures of apes as primitive or brutish, with evidence of rich and nuanced lives, shifting how both science and the public perceive our closest relatives. Jane Goodall didn't just expand our knowledge of chimpanzees, she changed the way we study animals altogether, showing that careful observation, patience, and respect could yield insights that no detached measurement ever could. Through years of patient observation, Jane Goodall revealed the complexity of chimpanzee society in ways no one had seen before. Beyond individual behaviors, one of the most striking features of their lives is the intricate social hierarchy that governs daily interactions. Males are generally dominant, but rank is not fixed. Alliances and friendships are crucial, often more influential than sheer strength. Alpha males rely on both social intelligence and political skill to maintain their position. They must form coalitions, navigate rivalries, and manage relationships with other males and females alike. Status is negotiated constantly, and subtle displays of power, a glance, a gesture, a carefully timed action, can determine the balance within the community. Cognition and culture are equally remarkable. Chimpanzees are capable of complex problem solving and innovation. Tool use is widespread. Some groups crack nuts with stones, fish termites with sticks, or use leaves as sponges. These behaviors are not inherited genetically, they are learned socially and vary from community to community, forming local traditions, a kind of chimpanzee culture. Even small, playful habits, like placing a blade of grass in the air, can spread and endure within a group, demonstrating creativity and social learning. Underlying this complex social world is a sophisticated system of communication. Chimpanzees convey intention, emotion, and information through facial expressions, gestures, and a wide range of vocalizations. Jane Goodall's meticulous observations helped decode these signals, showing how individuals negotiate status, maintain bonds, and coordinate behavior within their communities. Chimp gestures are not just reflexive, but intentional. If a gesture is ignored, a chimp will repeat it, modify it, or escalate until they get the response they want. A sign of genuine communicative intent. Even their calls can vary between groups, with local dialects allowing chimps to recognize outsiders, and further underlining their rich cultural variation. Hunting is another example of their intelligence in action. Chimpanzees are omnivores and will eat more meat than most other great apes. When hunting, they coordinate strategies to capture their prey. Different individuals will take on different roles. Some lie in wait, while others flush out the prey and drive them toward their collaborators. These cooperative hunts require communication, planning, and adaptability, revealing sophisticated cognitive abilities. Tool use can even come into play, with some groups fashioning crude spears, breaking off a branch, stripping its leaves, and sharpening the tip to probe into crevices where prey might be hiding. Yet their society is not purely cooperative. Aggression and competition are always present. Territorial disputes, dominance challenges, and occasional lethal conflicts show that cooperation and competition are intertwined, and that social intelligence must be balanced with the realities of power and survival. Alongside adoption, chimpanzees show other striking empathetic behaviors. After fights, bystanders may comfort a distressed individual, gently touching or embracing them in what researchers call consolation. They also demonstrate self-awareness. Chimps were among the first non-human animals shown to recognize themselves in a mirror, a hallmark of higher cognition. In short, chimpanzees live in a dynamic world where politics, cognition, culture, and social strategy are constantly interacting. The result is a society that is both familiar and profoundly complex, a living reflection of the intricate interplay between intelligence, cooperation, and competition. Beyond the forests of Gombe, humans have interacted with chimpanzees in many ways, from scientific studies to captivity, and even through popular culture. These interactions reveal not only their intelligence and creativity, but also the complex ethical questions that arise when humans and chimps share the same world. One of the most striking examples comes from attempts to teach chimpanzees elements of human language. In the 1960s and 1970s, researchers taught chimps like Washoe to use American Sign Language. Over time, Washoe learned hundreds of signs and even combined them in new ways to express ideas, desires, and observations. Other chimpanzees have been trained to use lexicograms or touchscreen-based symbolic systems, demonstrating their capability for intentional communication and abstract thought. While their linguistic abilities are far more limited than humans or even bonobos, these studies reveal the depth of cognitive sophistication and the capacity for social learning beyond the wild. Beyond Washoe, another well-known case was Nim Chimpsky, a chimpanzee raised in the 1970s as part of an experiment to teach sign language. While Nim learned many signs, the project raised profound ethical questions about placing chimps in human households, and about the limits of such studies. It became a cautionary tale of the blurred boundaries between human and ape. There is a much darker side to chimpanzee interactions with humans. Many have been held in captivity, both in laboratories and in entertainment. In research settings, they contributed to studies of cognition, social behavior, and medicine, often under conditions that today would be considered ethically unacceptable. Modern science has increasingly recognized the stress and limitations of captivity. This led to the establishment of sanctuaries and retirement programs for former lab chimpanzees, allowing them to live in more naturalistic, socially supportive environments. These programs highlight the importance of considering their welfare alongside scientific curiosity. However, this is not merely a problem of the past. Invasive research on chimpanzees in the United States was only ended in 2015, a surprisingly recent date. Today, hundreds of chimpanzees are still held by labs in the US, but pressure to end this is ongoing. In 2022, the federal court intervened, ordering the Alamogordo primate facility in New Mexico to move the remaining chimpanzees to a sanctuary, a process that only began in 2025. Even beyond formal study, chimpanzees have played a prominent role in human culture. They have appeared in films, television, and advertising, often anthropomorphized or portrayed as comedic characters. In some parts of the world, they are symbols of wilderness or curiosity, while in others they are hunted or captured for trade. These varied representations influence how humans perceive chimpanzees, sometimes fostering empathy and conservation awareness, and at other times, contributing to misunderstanding or exploitation. From language experiments in captivity to media portrayals and ethical debates, these interactions underscore the ways in which chimpanzees challenge our assumptions about intelligence, social complexity, and moral responsibility. They are not simply animals to be observed or studied. They are sentient, social beings whose lives intersect with ours in profound ways. Understanding these interactions enriches our appreciation of their capabilities and deepens the urgency of protecting them in the wild. Despite their intelligence, social complexity, and cultural richness, chimpanzees face serious threats across their range. Today, they are classified as endangered by the IUCN, with populations declining due to a combination of human pressures and disease. Habitat loss is perhaps the most pressing challenge. Expanding agriculture, logging, and infrastructure development have fragmented forests across equatorial Africa. Chimpanzees require large, connected territories to support their complex social systems. So even relatively small changes can disrupt group dynamics, reduce food availability, and increase human-wildlife conflict. It isn't only farms and logging that threatens chimps. New roads and settlements slice through forests, leaving once continuous habitats broken into small, isolated patches. Chimps are reluctant to cross open ground, so these breaks constrain populations, cutting them off from food, mates, and the chance to maintain genetic diversity. Poaching is another persistent threat. Chimpanzees are hunted for bushmeat and sometimes killed in retaliation when they enter farmland. They are also captured for the illegal pet trade. Keeping a chimpanzee as a pet is not only illegal in many countries, but profoundly misguided. They are incredibly strong, socially complex, and unpredictable animals. Infants may appear cute, but as they mature, their size, intelligence, and behavioral needs make them impossible to manage in a domestic setting. Sadly, many of these animals suffer or die as a result of this trade. The pet trade does not just affect the trafficked individual either. To capture a single infant, hunters often kill the mother and sometimes several members of her group who rush to defend her. The result is not just the loss of one young chimp, but the collapse of entire family bonds, highlighting why the idea of chimps as pets is both dangerous and deeply tragic. Disease is an additional, often overlooked threat. Chimpanzees are susceptible to many of the same illnesses as humans, including respiratory infections, tuberculosis, and Ebola. In some cases, disease transmitted by humans can devastate wild populations, particularly in fragmented habitats where animals are forced into closer contact with human settlements or other groups. Outbreaks of Ebola, for example, have wiped out entire communities in West and Central Africa, demonstrating how fragile these populations can be. Across Africa, the total population of wild chimpanzees is estimated at roughly 300,000 to 350,000 individuals. Many populations are small, isolated, and increasingly vulnerable. Some communities survive only in tiny forest fragments, where genetic diversity is limited, and social disruption is common. Conservation efforts have taken many forms. Protected areas, such as Gombe Stream National Park in Tanzania and Tai National Park in Côte d'Ivoire, and other reserves across Africa, provide critical refuges where chimpanzees can live relatively undisturbed. Anti-poaching patrols, local education programs, and community-led forest management initiatives help reduce threats, though enforcement and resources remain inconsistent. Jane Goodall's legacy is central to those efforts. Her contributions extend far beyond her pioneering research. By demonstrating that chimpanzees are sentient, intelligent, and emotionally complex, she fundamentally changed the way the world views these animals. But she also became a tireless advocate for their future, continuing to speak, write, and campaign right up until her death. In 1991, she founded the Roots and Shoots organization to empower young people to engage in conservation and humanitarian action. She explained the importance of this, in her own words, as roots creep underground everywhere and make a firm foundation. Shoots seem very weak, but to reach the light, they can break open brick walls. Imagine that the brick walls are all the problems we have inflicted on our planet. Hundreds of thousands of roots and shoots, hundreds of thousands of young people around the world can break through these walls. What began with 12 high school students in Tanzania now spans more than 140 countries and involves nearly 150,000 youth. It stands as a testament to her belief that hope lies in collective action, and that meaningful change begins locally before spreading globally. Through these efforts, she inspired millions to take action, from protecting habitats to campaigning against poaching and unethical captivity. Her work reminds us that conservation is not only about numbers or policies, but about recognizing and respecting the lives of individual animals. Protecting chimpanzees is not just an ecological imperative, it is a moral one. Their intelligence, social sophistication, and cultural diversity makes their loss profound in ways that extend beyond population statistics. Supporting protected areas, responsible conservation programs, and public awareness campaigns can help ensure that these remarkable creatures continue to thrive. As Jane Goodall demonstrated, patience, respect, and careful observation can change the way we see another species, and in doing so, inspire us to act on their behalf. Chimpanzees are more than our closest relatives. They are thinkers, toolmakers, and storytellers in their own right, carriers of culture that have lasted for generations. Their lives remind us that intelligence and society are not uniquely human traits, but part of a broader continuum of life. Protecting chimpanzees also means protecting their culture. Behaviors like nut cracking or termite fishing are not instinctive, but learned, passed down from one generation to the next. If a group is wiped out, its unique traditions vanish forever. Each surviving community carries not only its genes, but an irreplaceable cultural heritage. Yet their future depends on choices we make. Whether it's protecting forests, reducing demand for bushmeat, or challenging the exploitation of animals in captivity, our actions determine whether chimpanzees will continue to thrive in the wild. In many ways, Jane Goodall's greatest lesson was not simply what she discovered about chimpanzees, but what she showed us about ourselves. That empathy, patience, and respect can bridge the gap between species. If we carry that lesson forward, perhaps the story of chimpanzees will not be one of loss, but of coexistence. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of chimpanzees. If this video sparked your curiosity, don't let it stop here. Share it, talk about it, and keep learning. There's still so much to discover about the world's rare and remarkable species. And the more we understand, the better our chances of protecting them. Thanks for watching.